Hi there, and welcome to Healthitarian Living. On this episode, it is my pleasure to share with you a sauce template. This is a template that you can use to make virtually any creamy, whole food, and vegan plant-based sauce. And sauces, as I have learned in the last 10 years of my personal and professional journey with healthy, whole food, plant-based eating, are really the key to some of the most exquisite, delicious, and gourmet meals. And so as part of this video episode, I will be sharing with you the 5-step process for making numerous combinations that do not have you limited to one recipe, but actually that give you so much flexibility and various options to make as many different variations of some of the best creamy sauces that pretty much you can think of. And as part of the episode today, I'll be sharing with you how to put your template to use and make a creamy cashew cilantro sauce. I call them sauces in general, but in truth, they can be used as dips, as spreads, and even as types of curries. It all depends on really how watery or how thick you make them. So the flexibility within this template goes even more beyond just the types of ingredients you would work with. In terms of general meals, these types of sauces are best used on anything like a wholemeal salad, for which I also shared with you a 5-step video template as part of a previous episode. You can also use them as part of various star meals, for which I will be sharing with you another video template that can teach you how to make optimally healthy whole food plant-based meals in just a few minutes. You can use them as part of various snacks, to dip your favorite vegetable sticks, or even perhaps raw dehydrated crackers. So let's go ahead and get started. Step 1. The very first thing you will need for your sauce is to pick either a nut or a seed or one of their butters. One of my favorites is to use cashews. Cashews have such a beautiful neutral flavor and really are perhaps one of the best nuts to use as the foundation for your creamy sauces. Now, other good options also include sunflower seeds, peanuts or peanut butter, almonds or almond butter, and sesame seeds or tahini, which is their butter. Now, in terms of the quality of these nuts, you definitely want to make sure that they are raw. Now, if you'll be using some of their nut or seed butters, it's a little trickier or harder to find them in their raw form. And of course, source out your ingredients in organic form as much as possible. When using your seeds or nuts in their raw forms, it is best practice to soak them. Not all of them necessarily. For example, hemp seeds do not need to be soaked. And so for soaking your nuts and seeds, it is as simple as looking up a guide online or simply following basic guidelines as follows. Leaving a seed or a nut overnight about 8 to 12 hours, and this is where you can pretty much ensure that you've soaked it enough. However, for something like cashews, especially if you're in a pinch and you forgot to do it overnight, they can soak perfectly in as little as about 1 to 2 hours. So you've got some wiggle room to play with, and my personal advice is that it's better to soak for a little bit than none at all, as it helps to increase that seed or nut's nutritional potential, decrease any digestive inhibitors, and enhance or benefit them further for your digestion. So when you're thinking of what seed or nut or the butter version to pick, really it's up to you what you would enjoy and what's most easily accessible for you. There's only really a couple that I absolutely do not recommend that wouldn't be part of this sauce template, or ones that just won't make a good sauce. Those would be flax seeds and chia seeds. And if you're familiar with working with those already, you would know the reason for that is because they will form a gel-like consistency, which may make your sauce sticky, may make your dip, not as pleasant to work with or consume. In terms of quantity, the amount that you would use would very much, of course, depend on how much of this sauce or dip you would like to make. I will be sharing with you for this entire template a general amount for about 1 cup of sauce or dip. And that is about 1 cup, as it will depend on how much water you use and what your usage of the sauce or dip would be like. And so typically I recommend taking a handful. It can be a small handful, it can be a big handful. If you are using seeds, I recommend measuring out about 1/2 cup of seeds. And the end result of this roughly 1 cup will give you either 2 generous servings or it will give you 4 very small servings. If you require more of the sauce or dip at any time, then simply double, triple, or quadruple the amounts of everything that you would be using. Step 2. The next thing you need is a lemon or a similar tangy food. For myself personally, I love working with lemons, and pretty much 95% of the time I make my sauces, I'm working with lemons. They are highly alkalizing, so beneficial and good for our health, and so many benefits from fresh lemons as it is that add even more health and nutritional benefits to these sauces. However, you can just as easily use limes. You can alternate between the two. You can even consider experimenting with oranges, the juice of fresh oranges, if you are going to make more of a sweeter type of sauce. You can also use apple cider vinegar, specifically raw, unpasteurized apple cider vinegar, or even something like balsamic vinegar. In terms of quantity, you would be using the juice of 1 whole lemon. Now again, it could be a small lemon, it could be a large lemon. That will just slightly change the flavor in terms of maybe how strong or more mild the sauce may be. However, please note that if you are using the seeds and or skin, it can turn your sauce bitter. If you are going to use either of the vinegars at any time, then roughly 2 tablespoons is a good marker. You might use a little bit less if you again don't want it tasting as strong, or a little bit more if you really want to pack a punch to your sauce. Step 3, pick your spices. Now this step is optional in that the very easiest base sauce is really just based on a nut or a seed and one of those citrus fruits. And that alone can make a delicious addition to many meals, including in that form meals that would be perhaps a little bit on the sweeter side. You can, for example, make a yogurt mimicking like experience just by using raw soaked cashews with lemon juice and water. However, if you would like to use your sauces for tangy, spicy, and more of your other main meals, then you would typically want to pick at least 1 or more spices. Your spices can be in fresh or dry powdered form. Excellent options include garlic, ginger, turmeric, black pepper, cayenne pepper, or other spicy peppers such as a jalapeno, cumin, coriander seed, and sumac. And even something like nutritional yeast. It's not typically thought of as a spice, but it is something that adds flavor like a spice. As part of your spices, you also want to consider salt here. Now, we don't want to be adding, of course, any refined typical white salt, but something like either Himalayan salt or unrefined sea salt. Now, the quantities for your spices will vary drastically. For example, if you are using fresh garlic, it would roughly be 1 to 2 cloves. They can be small cloves, they can be large cloves. It depends on how much would you like a garlicky experience. If you are using fresh ginger or fresh turmeric, then typically a little chunk. When in doubt, start small and then work your way up to experiment with larger quantities. If it comes to your dry powdered forms of any of these spices, then I typically recommend with about a 1/4 teaspoon. That would be for your highly spicy ingredients, or about 1/2 teaspoon for some of the stronger tasting ones, or up to about 1 teaspoon or more. Starting with about a 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon and then working your way up, and also the different combinations, how you would like to experiment. The most important part of this step is not to be afraid to be creative. Don't get bogged down and limited in thinking that I need a recipe to tell me exactly how much to use. This needs to become your skill, part of your culinary skill set, so that you can start to feel out what types of flavors different spices bring out and what your preferences are, how they combine together. And this really best comes through experience. So at the beginning, start easy, start small, and with simpler combinations. So don't be adding everything at once, and see how you do from there. Step 4, pick your herbs. Again, just like with your spices, this step is completely optional. And so you can make a very simple sauce that will just use a nut, a citrus, and 1 or 2 spices. Or you can make a very elaborate sauce that will use the nut, the citrus, 1 or 2 or 3 spices, and maybe 1 or 2 herbs. The options here, as I shared with you at the beginning, are endless. You can have an infinite, literally, amount of flavor combinations for your sauces and dips and spreads and different curries. Just like with your spices, you can work with fresh versions or dried versions. Excellent choices for your sauces here include oregano, rosemary, basil, cilantro, thyme, and mint. And just like with the spices, the quantity varies. It all depends on the strength of the flavor as well as how much you like it. So for example, if you would like a fresh, nice, rosemary tasting creamy sauce, then use a small handful of rosemary leaves, maybe about 2 tablespoons full. If you love your cilantro, then you can use even half a cup of fresh cilantro leaves or more. If you are not sure how strong the mint may come through, then perhaps just a few leaves. If you are using the dried forms, then again here, anything from half a teaspoon to 1 teaspoon is usually in the safe zone. You don't want to be going for tablespoons at the beginning. That can come later as you develop your own personal preferences and most favorite flavor combinations. Step 5. This is where you add water. Simply water, no other liquid of any kind. Water that is, of course, cold or at room temperature, no hot water that you would want as part of this, and obviously high quality, good filtered water. In terms of the quantity of water, this will all depend on what your intention is for the sauce. And so if you are interested in making a dip or a spread, then you only want to add about 1/4 to 1/2 a cup of water. If you are going to make the more traditional general type of sauce consistency, then you want to go for about half a cup to 1 cup of water. And if you would like something more like a saucy curry, where your ingredients kind of can start to swim in it, then you'll want to go for more than 1 cup of water. It can be a cup and a quarter, it could be a cup and a half. Again, it depends on how watery, how runny you would like the mixture to be. And that's it. It's as simple as those 5 steps. No other ingredients are needed, just the wholesome goodness of these whole plant foods that will give you exceptional nutrition and health benefits. And so now that you see the overall picture, let's talk just briefly about what kind of health and nutrition benefits does something like this provide. Well, for starters, unlike most condiments, it is a non-processed, unrefined food. It has no added sugars. It has no added preservatives or additives of any kind. There are no oils, no modified fats. You get the whole food in its perfect form. And as all whole plant foods go, you are getting something that is high in nutrient density, that is also naturally anti-inflammatory. In general, especially if you're going to be soaking your nuts and seeds, adding in that beautiful alkalizing benefit of the lemon and all the different herbs and spices, these types of sauces actually are alkalizing in nature, which is so helpful to our bodies, which typically suffer so much due to chronic acidity generated by refined foods, processed foods, animal foods, and stress of everyday life. And at the same time, you are getting fiber. You are getting so many beneficial vitamins and minerals, pretty much the whole slew. And on top of that, you're getting an excellent array of antioxidants, the nutrients pretty much that help to repair our cellular damage. You're also getting an excellent dose of various phytonutrients. And those also are the plant nutrients that help to heal and also help to offer us some of the best protection and prevention. And so you can feel good about adding these types of sauces as long as, of course, you don't overdo it. As we know, nuts and seeds are high in fat. And so while for most people on a whole food plant-based diet, these types of sauces will be a welcome addition, if you are going to, of course, abuse them and perhaps drink them by the cupful and put them on every meal, then of course you could be overdoing a good thing. And so to wrap up this video, let's put our template to use with a practical example where I'll be sharing with you how to make a creamy cashew, one of my favorite sauces, in a cilantro version. The written form of my creamy cashew recipe is a little bit more specific, and so I have that available for you on one of my websites, evolvingwellness.com, with so many different variations and modifications as ideas for you of how to turn that one type of sauce into a numerous amount of flavor combinations to create so many different tasting meals. So here we go. Step one, we need a nut or seed or its butter. We will be using soaked raw organic cashews. To soak your cashews, you would first get some dry cashews, put them in a bowl and fill that bowl with water. Leave them again for a few hours and then rinse and drain them really well, and the leftover product is what you would be using for your sauce. Next, we will be using a lemon, the juice of one full lemon. So I would be juicing just the lemons using my reamer. Step 3 tells us to pick our spices. Well, in this case, I will be using 2 small cloves of garlic, as well as 2 small chunks of ginger. As well, we will be using some Himalayan or pink salt, and also just a little dash of some cayenne pepper. For step 4, we're going to be using some fresh cilantro. And here's about half a cup to a cup, but if cilantro maybe is not your thing as much, then you would just use, again, maybe just a small little handful of leaves. And as part of step 5, we need some water. And so we'll be adding in today about half a cup of water to our sauce. So all you need to do is put all of these ingredients into your blender and blend until a smooth, creamy consistency is reached. And here is our beautiful creamy cilantro sauce. So as you can see, it only takes a few minutes. These are so quick and easy to make. They are so easy also and versatile to store. So you can make a bunch if you can't make your own sauce or dip on a fresh or daily basis, and store it in the fridge in a sealed container. And typically they will last well for a few days up to a week. And of course, depending on the type of ingredients you have, the more lemon, the more garlic, these can keep quite well even for up to 2 weeks. But ultimately, I don't encourage you to keep them that long, as of course we have nutritional breakdown happening on a daily basis. So again, as much as possible, fresh is best, or simply making some for a few days. And again, when it comes to the uses, these types of sauces and dips and spreads and curries go excellent with any of your beans, any of your bean dishes, anything like grain dishes, whether it's quinoa, whether it's bulgur, whatever grain dish you are making. They also go excellent with mushrooms. And so as you're combining beautiful mushroom and bean dishes, or maybe mushroom, vegetable, and grain dishes, all of these greatly benefit from these types of sauces, and they just enhance them and make them that much more delicious and exquisite and so unique. And there's so many beautiful flavor variations, and whether you want it spicier or tangier, or whether you want some herb or spice to come through, you've got it. The possibilities are endless. And so I hope you enjoyed this episode. Definitely get creative, start making some of these wonderful meal additions. And as for myself, I'll be using mine today as a snack, and enjoy this fresh, amazing smelling cilantro. Divine. Thanks for joining me, and see you on another episode of Healthitarian Living.